I'm Adam Willems, lead reporter at the Financial Revolutionist.
Hi, my name is Thomas Fuß. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Backbase.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for being with us. I'm wondering if you could explain briefly what Backbase is.
Yeah, sure. So Backbase, we say we're an engagement banking platform. So we drive all the touch points of consumers of financial institutions throughout all the channels, but also all the way to the bank employee side, really managing the whole life cycle of a customer within a bank.
What is the difference between engagement banking versus normal banking?
Well, I think what you call normal, we also call traditional banking.
Sure.
I think traditional banking is
Incumbent banking,
incumbent
sure.
banking, right? Of course. I think typically what you see is banking till today is often still broken, right? So banks are organized around channels or products, but they don't necessarily care about you. I mean, they do care, but they're technically not capable of organizing themselves around the customers. And so engagement banking is really the shift of going from these years and decades of legacy banking and silos and spaghetti codes to re-architecting banking around the customers. So where rather you tailor value propositions around the customer versus looking inside out, which is like you need a credit card, but the customer doesn't need a credit card, right? The customer has a problem, maybe wants to pay, wants to rent, all these type of things. So it's really turning it inside out, turning it around and really looking at the customer first versus the product or the channel at the end of the day.
Okay, understood. What does that mean for the banks that you work with?
Well, I think predominantly really Backbase is here to help banks with their digital transformation, right? A lot
Sure.
of them have been on this journey for many, many years, but what it usually meant was creating your first mobile app, creating your first web portal maybe, but not necessarily changing the way also how they operate, how they behave, how they think, how customer-centric they are. So Backbase is not just a technology platform. No, it's
Right.
actually a platform that helps you to break out of that prison and little by little through, like say, progressive modernization, go on that path where you're renewing your whole banking landscape and you become more customer-centric and you start to move from, completely being tied up in maintenance and high operational spend into actually creating a new flywheel which is centered around the customer and create new value. So I think that's really it.
Right. So how much of that is, I mean, I know you are CTO, so this is maybe a trick question for you, but how much of that sort of ethos modernization comes from technology versus from them working with you and sort of more face-to-face human knowledge transfer that helps them sort of transform?
Yeah, that's ironic. I think if you ask the majority of our customers, they probably came because they bought into the platform and technology vision, but they will most likely praise us for the partnership that we create with them. So I think what we realized at some point in time is that just, you can have the nicest platform and the nicest SDKs and frameworks and tools, but if you don't also help the banks to really create their own organizational model around it and help them on their journey, they're not going to succeed. So as much as CTO, as I would claim, it's all about the composable platform fabric, the APIs, the microservices, as much as how you teach banks to, operate in this new reality and how to leverage the platform to then also find a new organization model, which maybe teams are much more, journey level teams. They're around the customer journey rather than, again, just a product line. So
Right.
It's both. In the end, I think we're called a fintech for a reason, right? It's finance, part of the organizational product side, as well as the tech side. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So you've recently launched an SMB-focused solution. I'm curious, what were the thought processes that went behind moving in that direction as well?
Yeah, I think at Backbase we always try, I think one of our core values is to solve real and hard problems. And if you look at the SMB side, what you see is that it's a massively underserved space because today they're either captured in traditional consumer banking or they are lost somewhere in corporate banking. But the reality is maybe you're a small entrepreneur at the beginning, you start off small, and then maybe hopefully over time your business is growing. And I think financial institutions should help to support you along this way rather than parking you in a corner. And I think that was the idea behind it, is to say, like, how do we solve a real issue for these businesses, but also the banks who really had not really a good position to service them and help them with their needs, which are really, very different, right? So I think there's a difference versus being just a private individual, maybe buying a house, versus your, entrepreneur. You have your expenses. Maybe you pay them from the same account. and then maybe you want to finance your first office. Like there's all sorts of different journeys, and the idea behind it was really how do we fundamentally redesign how we service this SMB space, and that was the idea behind it.
Okay. How much of a departure was that for you technologically versus sort of what Backbase already offers?
Yeah, so I think that's the power of what we're doing. It is not at all any departure from a technology point of view, right? I think at the end of the day, our entire platform is made out of building blocks and composable elements that help us assemble new customer journeys. And what you see is that a lot of components that we have today that we use in maybe also a retail context, they also still apply in a business context. But then the way you assemble these components will create new value. So from a technology point of view, it's just evolving the platform and adopting more and assembling the journeys to what you're trying to accomplish at the end of the day. And I think that's the power of any type of platform proposition, is that you're not constantly reinventing or building something new Frankenstein type on the side, but you're actually thinking about how do we leverage the platform that you have, and you compose new value propositions.
Right, absolutely. And with that in mind, what's next then?
Well, I think what's next, the obvious, it sounds maybe still a bit cliche, but at the end of the day, hyper personalization is still what we're striving for, right? So I've been talking about creating more value tailored propositions, but we are still a long way out from truly caring about either you as an individual or you as your private company that is maybe in the media space, and what does it mean? So I think we are now in a position to, through technology, build these new value propositions, but also we're still in the process of learning on how to apply them, because obviously everyone is talking about AI, but then how to apply it meaningfully and also responsibly, right? Which is maybe one of the key challenges that we have in our industry, is also how to apply it in a responsible manner. I think that will be, the next 5 years is really figuring out how to leverage something like artificial intelligence to really create these personal experiences in a meaningful way at scale, but also in a responsible way, to improve the financial wellness of both individuals and businesses.
Right. So it sounds like you see AI as being sort of a main technological driver that makes something like hyper-personalization possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think anyone else saying something else,
Right.
it seems almost, like I said, it's too cliche, too obvious, but that's the reality. We're all looking at this at this moment in time. But also, I think it's important to understand that, and that's also what we keep telling our customers, there's no point in now, getting lost in AI if you're not even in a position to harvest the data and the information of your clients across all channels. And that's the reality. A lot of banks are still in the today, that information about the customers in one place and in another place. But through platforms like Backbase, you are able to actually really get a 360 picture of the customer with all the information, all the history across all channels. And then applying AI will allow us to really create powerful insights that can make a difference at the end of the day.
Understood. Yeah. My last question is whether there are any questions I haven't asked that you feel like I should have.
I think the question is, maybe the question you haven't asked is like, why should people go for engagement banking, or why should they care about personalization? And I think the answer to that would be, for me, is like, I think really we shouldn't underestimate the situation we're in. I think either you start acting now, or the reality is, I think you will be left behind, right? We have seen over the past few years, there have been a lot of so-called neobanks, or something like Revolut or Robinhood, that have disrupted our space, and I think some of them will continue to succeed. And there will be new ones, especially we talked about small to medium-sized business banking. There will be new entrants who will disrupt the space, and I think there is no alternative but moving into a fundamental new way of doing banking than today.
Understood. Well, thank you very much, Thomas. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.